Welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show. So, the priest, Rupnik, who has been accused of engaging in numerous acts of abuse over the period of decades, has been confronted in a Rome airport by a news reporter. And she was trying to get him to comment on the situation with the allegations and abuse victims. And the whole time, Rupnik did not want to say a word, was not interested in having any conversations, was just completely ignoring her the whole time, and made a beeline for his cab as quickly as possible without addressing the issue of the allegations that have been made against him and that the Vatican is still currently looking through. And to its shame, the Vatican has dragged its feet on this situation for several years now. Originally, they said the statute of limitations won't allow them to really look into him, and Pope Francis, at the pressure of a number of people, eventually went ahead and lifted that statute of limitations to allow an investigation on Rupnik. But here we are still waiting on some kind of outcome, some kind of decision, some kind of justice in this situation. And of course, again, the Vatican has not brought that about yet, to its shame. Let me go ahead and share my screen and show you the video where he's being confronted, because they do actually have this on camera, and good on them. This does not appear to be the behavior of a man who is innocent. I think a man who is innocent wouldn't run away from cameras and questions like this. Now, some might say, well, he's a Jesuit and maybe he's being required to be silent. But of course, he doesn't tell that to the reporter, so I don't believe that that's actually the case. Let me show you the video. It's going to be in another language, but there is closed caption at the bottom, automatically translated into English. I'll play through the whole video once without saying anything and trust that you'll read the closed caption at the bottom. But for those who are listening with audio only, at the end of the video, I will then read a transcript, a translation of what was said, just for the benefit of those who can't read the closed caption on their screen. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in and see what the reporter does here.
Padre Marco, salve, piacere. Sono Roberta Rei delle Iene.
No.
Mi scusi se la disturbo. Senta, volevamo capire come mai lei non si è difeso pubblicamente mai da queste gravi accuse che queste suore le hanno mosso in questi anni. Volevamo soltanto la sua versione, padre, perché abbiamo parlato con queste sorelle che ci hanno detto che negli anni avrebbero subito, insomma, cose abbastanza gravi, inaudite se fossero vere. Padre, crediamo sia importante avere la sua versione. Ci può dire cosa sarebbe successo con queste donne? Sono tutte donne di chiesa che avevano lei come padre spirituale e avevano grande fiducia in lei. Ci hanno raccontato che hanno abbandonato la chiesa, che addirittura ha tentato di togliersi la vita per quanto accaduto. Lei è stato scomunicato. Posso chiederle come mai? È un gesuita come Papa Francesco, no? È stato scomunicato. La scomunica poi le è stata tolta. Quando viene tolta una scomunica? Perché ha chiesto perdono? Che padre, solo per capire, se queste cose fossero vere, sarebbero gravi non solo in un luogo laico, ma in un luogo di culto tanto più. Posso chiederle, gli obblighi dei gesuiti, lei riconosce meglio di me, sono la castità, la povertà, e queste donne raccontano che avrebbero avuto delle spiegazioni che sembrano assurde. Il sesso a tre come espressione della Trinità, il sesso come espressione dell'amore di Dio. Questa cosa è vera? Che se non è vera ce lo dica, perché non ha mai risposto? Cioè non si sente di dire niente a queste donne. Sono comunque donne di chiesa, lei era il suo padre spirituale. Andare in dei cinema porno, come racconta Suor Gloria, ammesso che sia vero, secondo lei non è grave se fosse vero? Cos'era, un esercizio spirituale? Padre, vorremmo soltanto la sua versione, davvero. Sono passati tanti anni, magari si sente di dire qualcosa a queste donne. Sono tutte suore, molte hanno abbandonato la chiesa per questa cosa e dicono che è stata rovinata la vita. Si sente di dire qualcosa a queste donne? Si sente responsabile? Può essere accaduto qualcosa per cui si sente di chiedere perdono. Ci hanno raccontato che avrebbero subito molestie anche sulle impalcature dei suoi mosaici, padre Rupnik. Non pensa che questo silenzio rispetto a queste accuse così gravi, queste donne non si conoscevano all'epoca dei fatti, padre, ti raccontano tutte la stessa cosa.
Wow. So does this scream out to you, I'm innocent? Does this appear to be the behavior of an innocent man? Or does this appear to be the behavior of somebody who is guilty and is just trying to dodge accountability? Either way, we should have already had an answer from the Vatican on this question of whether or not he is innocent or guilty, and yet we still don't. Still dragging their feet on this matter. And there's no excuse for it. I understand you want to investigate things properly, due diligence, sufficiently give someone a proper defense. I get all of that. But we're way past that. And what this message sends is basically that we don't care about abuse victims. Doesn't matter. That's the message that's being communicated by not addressing this issue. And also by Rupnik running away like this instead of being accountable in offering some kind of comment. And if he's not able to comment because somehow there's some kind of vow binding him because he's a Jesuit, or maybe his superiors binding him to silence, then at the very least say that. You can still say, hey, I'm bound to silence on the matter. But even again, beyond his silence, the Vatican's silence is just as disturbing as what we just saw there. Now, I want to read the transcript to you, a transcript of what we just saw there. For those who may have had difficulty in reading the closed caption, or, we're doing audio only or something like that. Okay, so the lady says, Father Marco Rupnik. Hello, it's a pleasure. Is it? Roberta Ray from Lelaine. Excuse me for bothering you. Listen, we wanted to understand why you've never defended yourself publicly against these accusations that these sisters have leveled against you in recent years. We only want your version, Father, because we talked to these religious sisters and they told us over the years they underwent, rather serious things, unheard of if they are true, Father. We think it's important to have your version. Can you tell us what happened with these women? They are women of the church that you had as spiritual father and put great trust in you. They told us that they left the church, and even one tried to take her own life after what happened. You were excommunicated. Can you tell me why? You're a Jesuit like Pope Francis. You were excommunicated. The excommunication was then lifted. When is an excommunication lifted? Because you asked pardon, Father? Only to understand, if these things are true, they would be serious enough in a secular setting, all the more a place of worship. Not only that, but he was then incarnated in the diocese and is currently functioning as a priest. May I ask you the obligations of the Jesuits? You know them better than I, are chastity and poverty. These women have told us things and recounted things that seem absurd. Sex in a threesome as an expression of the Trinity. Sex as an expression of God's love. Is this true? Because if it's not, just tell us. Why haven't you ever responded? That is, don't you feel like saying anything to these women? They are religious women. You were their spiritual father. Going to porn theaters, as Sister Gloria recounts. Assuming it's true, according to you, wouldn't that be serious if it were true? What was it, a spiritual exercise, Father? We only want your version. Many years have passed. Perhaps you feel like saying something to these women. They are all sisters. Many abandoned the church over this. Some say their lives were ruined. Do you feel like saying anything to these women? Do you feel any responsibility that something happened for which you need to ask forgiveness? They told us that they were molested even on the scaffolding of your mosaics, Father Rupnik. His mosaics are all over the Catholic world, in Catholic churches all over the world. Quite ugly as well, by the way. Don't you think that this silence in the face of such serious accusations, these women didn't know one another when these events occurred? Father, but they all recount the same thing: total silence. This is the behavior of a coward and the behavior of a man who is guilty, not the behavior of a man who is innocent. Absolutely abhorrent. Let me read to you this article here from Crux. Rupnik confronted at Rome airport remains silent on abuse allegations. Notorious alleged abuser father Marco Rupnik was recently approached by a journalist at a Rome airport who questioned him about accusations he sexually abused over 40 adult women over a span of decades. Italian journalist Roberta Ray with the television program La Lane confronted Rupnik at the baggage claim of Rome's airport, where he apparently arrived from the Schengen area along with a friend or assistant. In a video of the encounter published to social media, Ray approaches Rupnik and introduces herself, repeatedly asking if he has a response to allegations of sex abuse and misconduct with the women who have accused him. Rupnik in the video declines to comment and places his hand in front of the camera recording him. At other times, the hand of his travel companion is seen blocking the screen, and at others, the companion puts himself between Rupnik and the camera. Talk about transparency in the church, right? Ray, among other things, asks Rupnik about the circumstances of a brief excommunication for absolving an accomplice in violating the sixth commandment, likely someone with whom he had sexual relations, and whether he has asked for forgiveness. She questions Rupnik about the promises of chastity and obedience that he made as a priest before being expelled by the Jesuits, and whether he believed his actions with his accusers violated these vows. As Ray follows Rupnik and his companion out of the airport, and I do have to ask, why does he have a traveling companion? What is that for? Asking about the specific allegations made against him and his use of spiritual and mystical imagery and his alleged abuse, and the testimonies from women about how their lives were ruined by his abuse, he and his companion tried to dodge her by making sharp and abrupt terms while ignoring her and her questions until they get into a vehicle and leave. The video was published after a new alleged victim, Sister Samuel, came forward publicly after two others spoke out last year. So there's a lot of these people speaking out. The video was published after a new alleged victim. Rupnik, 70, is accused of sexually abusing and manipulating at least 40 different women, most of whom were nuns who belonged to the Loyola community he helped found in his native Slovenia in the 80s. A former member of the Pope's Jesuit order, Rupnik is also one of Catholic Church's most renowned modern artists. I have to stress modern in there. With countless churches and shrines throughout the world containing his murals, including the Vatican and the famed Marian Shrine in Lourdes. In 2021, 9 former members of the Loyola community complained to the Vatican about Rupnik's abuse. Yet when the allegations against him broke publicly in October 2022, the then Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith at the time, led by the Spanish Jesuit Cardinal Ladaria, refused to open a former canonical inquiry, citing a statute of limitations for the abuse of adults, despite the fact that this provision had been waived in other cases. So they did waive that statute of limitations in other cases, but did not do that for him until Pope Francis required them to do so. Despite the DDF's decision, the Jesuit barred Rupnik from ministry and imposed restrictions on his travel and commissions for new art projects. In December of 2022, they invited anyone with other claims against Rupnik to come forward, which yielded 15 new complaints against him. After refusing to cooperate with an internal Jesuit inquiry, Rupnik was expelled from the order for disobedience in June 2023. Does that sound like an innocent man? Refusing to cooperate with an inquiry? Well, you just saw in video him refusing to cooperate with another inquiry, and in this case, from the inquiry of a journalist. In mid-September 2023, Pope Francis met a key Rupnik ally, who has publicly called the abuse charges a form of lynching. And days later, an investigation by the Diocese of Rome essentially gave Rupnik's Centro Aleti in Rome, where he lived and carried out his art projects, a clean bill of health. At the time, after being ousted from the Jesuits, Rupnik was incarnated into the Slovenian Diocese of Koper and appeared to be free to carry out his ministry unimpeded. However, in the wake of massive public backlash, Pope Francis in October 2023 reversed course and waived the statute of limitations on the Rupnik case, allowing a canonical trial to proceed. But why did it come to the backlash? Why did it come to this massive public outcry that required Pope Francis to do this? Why wasn't that done already before the public outrage? That's the question you need to ask. Rupnik's cases remain open, with the Vatican largely silent on the status of the case and when a verdict can be expected. In May 2024, Irish Archbishop John Kennedy, secretary of the disciplinary section of the Vatican's Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, which is handling Rupnik's case, said the case was in advanced stages. And yet, here we are, still waiting on an answer. However, nearly a year later, there's still no indication of when it might be brought to a conclusion. In November of last year, the DDF, in a communique signed by its prefect, Cardinal Argentinian Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, said that a study group would be formed to more clearly define the crime of spiritual abuse and typify it in the Church's Code of Canon Law. The definition and codification of the crime of spiritual abuse is especially relevant in the Rupnik case, as one of the main aspects of the allegations against him has been the use of spiritual imagery and symbols in his abuse, styling the sexual encounters as a mystical union with God and the Virgin Mary. However, no timeline has been provided for when the study group might complete its work, meaning that in the meantime, Rupnik remains a priest in good standing and is unhindered in his ministry and his ability to accept new sacred art commissions. Absolute disgusting disgrace. Observers also question whether the new crime, once defined and added to the Code of Canon Law, will be able or to be applied retroactively. What that would imply either way for the outcome of the Rupnik case and his ability to continue celebrating the sacraments as a priest in good standing. It continues. In the meantime, more alleged victims appear to be coming forward. Last February, 2 women came forward saying they sounded the alarm over Rupnik's case in the 90s, but were routinely ignored while Rupnik was protected. Story we've heard many, many times, sadly. During a March 9 airing of the Lalane program, a third woman came forward and said Rupnik used her to invite her to late-night meetings, warning, please be careful not to let anyone hear you, because people might have strange ideas seeing you come down to me at 10 p.m. A consecrated member of the monastic fraternity of Jerusalem, Samuel, recounted various traumas she endured at the hands of Rupnik. During dinner, he was blowing me kisses from a distance. I felt terrible. I looked at my plate. I ate. And after 3 seconds, I looked up just to check that he had stopped. He did this in several places. She said Rupnik created a climate in which she felt physically ill and was afraid of him, oftentimes feeling her heartbeat beating fast while she began to sweat, signs of high anxiety. One time I found myself with him downstairs. He came closer. He talked to me about the mosaic and put his hands on my shoulder. Then his hand went down behind my back, and at a certain point, he stopped with his finger, started playing with my bra. When she pulled away suddenly, she said Rupnik minimized the situation, saying, it's nice we could do this together because I'm a priest and you're a quiet nun, all pure. In addition to questions regarding his own status and pending outcome of his case as it continues to drag on, the Rupnik affair has also raised questions about just how seriously the Vatican is taking the abuse of adults, particularly adult women. While it has taken action against top-ranking prelates accused of sexually harassing adult seminarians, such as McCarrick, similar decisive action has not been taken against individuals such as Rupnik, accused of serial sexual abuse of women. And again, I just have to ask you, if the man is innocent, is that the way an innocent man would respond? Refusing to cooperate with inquiries and refusing to answer questions and have some kind of accountability when people confront you at the airport? Does an innocent man remain silent and run away to a vehicle to escape? I'd love to hear your thoughts. You think he's innocent? If he is, how come the Vatican hasn't quickly vindicated him? And how come this issue hasn't been settled already? Those are some serious things to consider. I do want to give y'all a health update on Pope Francis as well. Pope continues his treatment in the Gemelli Hospital. As Pope Francis perseveres through his hospital stay, the Universal Church prepares to commemorate tomorrow's 12th anniversary of his election to the papacy. He will have been Pope for 12 years tomorrow. A medical bulletin is expected this evening following the recitation of the Rosary. The Pope continues his prescribed therapies at Rome's Gemelli Hospital. According to midday updates from the Vatican press office, the Holy Father follows the curial spiritual exercises via video from his hospital room. On Monday, his medical team at Gemelli Hospital indicated that Francis is no longer in immediate danger, with signs of slight improvement, though his clinical situation remains complex. Not much else is known while awaiting the doctor's assessment, a Vatican source notes. So, slight improvement, but we still don't know a whole lot. Meanwhile, the faithful gather to pray in the plaza before John Paul II's statue at Gemelli, with masses celebrated in the chapel at the main entrance. I suspect there will be this evening another medical update, so we'll find out more. But last few days, they've been saying there's a slight improvement. So who knows? But they did say he still needs to remain in the hospital, despite the slight improvement. So I guess we'll find out some more soon. Anyways, I wanted to sneak this one in because I thought it was important to address this situation with Rupnik. If you appreciate this video and you want to see more like it, please hit that subscribe button and also the like button. And don't forget to drop a comment. I want to hear your feedback. We'll see you soon for another show. Hey, have you been benefiting from this channel, but you're not supporting it?
You're definitely guilty.
Get over to patreon.com/Reason and Theology and support this channel if you've been benefiting from the content.
Did I say get it done now?
I mean right now!
And if you can't support the show financially, you should at least be subscribed, right? Am I right or am I right?
Yeah, I think he's right.
I'm right. So go and hit the subscribe button right now.